I was driving alone on Eve when this happened, heading back to my apartment after a late shift that ran longer than it should have. I remember thinking the night felt unusually quiet, even for a holiday. No fireworks, no distant music. Just the steady hum of my engine and the dark stretch of road ahead. I'd taken this route dozens of times before, but that night it felt unfamiliar, like something had subtly changed while I wasn't paying attention. The suburban streets thinned out quickly, houses giving way to open stretches lined with trees. Streetlights appeared less frequently, and the road felt narrower, as if the darkness was slowly closing in. I checked the time. Just after 1:30 p.m. My phone sat in the cup holder face down because I didn't want distractions. I told myself I'd be home in 20 minutes. That's when I noticed the headlights behind me. They weren't close, not tailgating, just there, steady, centered in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was normal to see another car this late, but after 5 minutes, they were still there, same distance, same lane. I made a casual lane change, more out of curiosity than concern. The headlights followed. A small knot formed in my stomach. I sped up slightly, telling myself I was imagining patterns that didn't exist. The car sped up too. I slowed down, pretending to adjust my mirrors. They slowed as well. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I told myself to relax. This wasn't a movie. This was real life. People drove the same routes every night. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the car behind me wasn't in a hurry to get anywhere. The road curved ahead, dipping into a darker stretch where the trees pressed closer. I turned the radio on for background noise, but it only made me more aware of how alone I was. The headlights behind me seemed brighter now, more defined against the black road. I checked my mirrors again. They hadn't tried to pass me. Not once. I took a right turn onto a smaller road, acting on instinct. It wasn't the fastest way home, but it cut through a residential area. I waited for the headlights to continue straight. They turned with me. My heart rate spiked. The neighborhood was quiet, most houses dark. Lawns stretched out like empty stages. I drove past familiar streets, hoping to see another car, another sign of life. There was nothing. Just me and them. I made another turn, then another. The headlights followed, every time patient and precise. They weren't aggressive. They weren't flashing or honking. That somehow made it worse. Whoever was behind the wheel wasn't rushed. They were comfortable. I reached a four-way stop and came to a complete halt, my foot pressing firmly on the brake. The car behind me stopped too, maintaining the same careful distance. I waited longer than necessary, pretending to check for cross-traffic. They waited. When I finally went, they went. My phone buzzed suddenly in the cup holder, making me jump. I glanced at it. No service, but a text notification appeared anyway. "You don't have to keep testing me." My breath caught. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. I hadn't told anyone where I was. I hadn't messaged anyone. My fingers hovered over the phone, unsure whether to respond. I locked the screen instead and focused on the road. I didn't want to lead them to my apartment. I decided to drive past my usual turn and head toward a larger road somewhere with more visibility. As I approached the intersection, I checked my mirrors again. The headlights were closer now, not dangerously close, just enough to remind me they were there. I turned onto the larger road relief, washing over me as I saw a few distant streetlights ahead. The headlights followed. My relief faded quickly. I realized something else, then another detail that hadn't registered before. Their headlights never changed. They didn't dim when we passed under streetlights. They didn't brighten when the road went dark. They stayed the same, unwavering, like they were set deliberately. I tried calling a friend. The call failed. No signal. My phone buzzed again. "You drive better when you're nervous." Tears welled in my eyes. I told myself not to cry. I needed to think. I needed to stay in control. I made a sudden turn into a small shopping plaza parking lot, hoping the open space would give me an advantage. I pulled into a spot near the front, my tires squealing slightly. The car behind me didn't park. They rolled past slowly, headlights sweeping across my windshield, illuminating my face. For a split second, I saw the outline of the driver. No details, just a silhouette. Then they continued to the far end of the lot and stopped engine running. My phone buzzed one more time. "I was hoping you'd stop." I locked my doors, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I didn't know what they wanted. I didn't know how long they'd been watching me. All I knew was that the night felt suddenly very small, and the road I thought I knew no longer felt safe. And I had a sinking feeling that stopping was exactly what they'd been waiting for. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the glow of their headlights at the far end of the parking lot. The engine of the other car was still running. It didn't move. It didn't need to. The space between us felt deliberate, measured, like a decision already made. My phone buzzed again. Relax. I'm not in a hurry. My throat tightened. I didn't reply. I put the car in reverse, slowly testing whether they would react. As soon as my brake lights flickered, their headlights shifted just slightly, adjusting to keep me in view. I stopped again, heart racing. They didn't move. They were letting me decide the next step. I pulled forward and exited the parking lot, choosing a route I never used, one that wound through older neighborhoods with narrower streets. I hoped the unpredictability would help. The headlights followed without hesitation. Every turn, every curve, they stayed far enough back to avoid attention, close enough to stay present. I told myself to head toward the police station. Then I realized I didn't actually know where the nearest one was. The thought alone made my chest tighten. I tried my phone again. Still no signal. I rolled the window down, letting cold air flood in, hoping it would steady me. It didn't. I slowed at a stop sign and waited. The car behind me waited too. I turned my blinker on, then off, then on again like a nervous habit. They mirrored me once, then stopped. That small deviation sent a jolt through me. They didn't need to copy everything. They were confident. I turned onto a darker road, lined with parked cars and tall hedges. Houses sat back from the street, windows black. The night felt thick here, like sound couldn't travel properly. I considered honking making noise, but the thought of drawing attention to myself felt wrong. I didn't want a scene. I wanted witnesses. My phone buzzed. You won't like how loud this gets. I swallowed and kept driving. Ahead, I saw a pair of flashing yellow lights marking a construction zone. Barriers narrowed the road to a single lane. I slowed, heart pounding. As I passed between the cones, the headlights behind me disappeared for a second, swallowed by the curve. Relief surged, brief and fragile. Then they reappeared closer than before. I pressed the accelerator harder than I should have, the engine protesting. The speedometer crept up. The road straightened, opening into a long, empty stretch. I could see far ahead. No cars, no people, just darkness and my own headlights cutting through it. The car behind me closed the distance slightly, then matched my speed again. My phone buzzed, but I didn't look this time. I couldn't. A sudden idea struck me. I flicked my hazard lights on and slowed dramatically as if my car was failing. The headlights behind me slowed too. I pulled over onto the shoulder, heart hammering so hard I felt dizzy. I turned the engine off and sat in silence. The other car rolled past me slowly. For a moment I thought I'd done it, outsmarted them. Then they stopped 10 feet ahead and put their car in reverse. My breath caught as they backed toward me, inch by inch, until they were directly beside my driver's door. Their windows stayed up, their engine idled quietly. The darkness hid their face completely. My phone buzzed again. That was clever. I didn't think. I slammed my car into drive and shot forward, swerving back onto the road and speeding past them. My tires squealed. The other car surged after me, engine roaring, now no longer pretending. I screamed, the sound tearing out of me before I could stop it. Tears blurred my vision as I drove faster than I ever had on that road, praying I wouldn't lose control. The headlights behind me stayed locked on, relentless. Then ahead, I saw it. A 24-hour grocery store, bright, open, alive. I didn't slow down. I turned sharply into the lot tires, screeching, and parked crookedly near the entrance. I jumped out of my car and ran toward the doors, keys still in my hand. Inside, a handful of people stood near the registers, their voices loud and ordinary. I burst through the doors, gasping. Someone followed me, I said to no one in particular. They're outside. A few heads turned. A man near the carts looked past me through the glass. There's no one there, he said. I spun around. The parking lot was empty. No headlights, no car idling at the edge, nothing. My legs gave out and I leaned against a display, shaking. A store employee asked if I needed help. I nodded, barely able to speak. They offered to call the police. I agreed. The officers arrived quickly. They took my statement, walked the lot, checked nearby roads. They found nothing. No reports. No cameras had caught anything useful. One of them asked if I was sure the car had followed me the entire time. I was sure. I didn't drive home that night. I stayed with a friend, then another, the next night. I changed my routine, my routes, my number. Weeks passed. I started to believe it was over. Then one night, while driving home from work much earlier than usual, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You're better when you don't stop." I pulled over immediately, heart racing, scanning the road behind me. There was no one there. I deleted the message. I blocked the number. I sat there shaking until my breathing slowed. Even now, when I drive alone at night, I check my mirrors constantly. I avoid empty roads. I don't pull over unless I'm surrounded by people. And every eve, without fail, I feel that same tightness in my chest when I see a car behind me that doesn't pass. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't being chased. It's being studied. And knowing someone out there is patient enough to wait for you to make one wrong decision. I was alone in a parking garage on Eve when this happened, and even now, thinking back on it makes my chest tighten. I'd stayed late at work, finishing end-of-year reports while everyone else rushed home or out to celebrate. By the time I shut my computer down and took the elevator to the garage, it was already close to midnight. The garage belonged to a mixed-use building, offices above, shops and restaurants below. During the day, it was busy and loud. At night, especially on Eve, it felt abandoned. The elevator doors opened to level B2, and the silence hit me immediately. No engines. No voices. Just the faint echo of my own footsteps as I walked toward my car. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, but not all of them were on. Some sections of the garage were dim, others completely dark. I pressed my key fob to unlock my car, the sound echoing too loudly. I got inside, quickly locked the doors, and sat there for a moment, scrolling through my phone, letting my breathing slow. That's when I noticed I wasn't the only car down there. 2 rows over, near the ramp leading further down, a vehicle sat with its engine running. Its headlights were off, but I could see the red glow of brake lights flickering faintly against the concrete wall. I frowned, watching it through my side mirror. It hadn't been there when I got off the elevator. At least I didn't think it had. I told myself it was probably someone waiting for a passenger, or warming up their car. Still, the fact that they were parked so far from the exit bothered me. Most people waited near the ramps or elevators. This car sat in the deepest part of the garage, partially hidden by a support column. I started my engine and eased out of my spot, heading toward the exit ramp. As I passed the row where the other car sat, the brake lights went dark. The engine revved. The car pulled out slowly and fell in behind me. My stomach tightened. I tried not to jump to conclusions. Parking garages were awkward places. Cars moved in strange patterns. Still, I watched closely as I turned left toward the upward ramp. The car behind me followed. Same distance, same speed. The ramp spiraled upward, concrete walls closing in on both sides. My headlights cast long, warped shadows that seemed to move on their own. The other car's headlights stayed off, but I could hear the low hum of its engine echoing behind me. At the first level up, I signaled right, acting on impulse. The car behind me signaled right too. My heart rate picked up. I drove past a row of empty spaces and slowed slightly. The car slowed with me. I sped up. They matched my speed exactly. The silence of the garage made everything feel amplified. The sound of tires, the echo of engines, my own breathing. I reached the next ramp and hesitated. I could go up, or I could go back down. Without signaling, I turned sharply and headed back toward B2. The car followed. I felt cold all over. My phone buzzed suddenly in my hand, making me flinch. No service bars, but a text notification appeared anyway. "You shouldn't be down here alone." My breath caught. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. I hadn't told anyone where I parked. I hadn't posted anything. I locked the phone and focused on the ramp ahead. Back on B2, I drove past my original parking spot and continued deeper into the garage, hoping to lose them among the concrete columns. The garage seemed to stretch on endlessly now, rows blurring together. I turned down one aisle, then another, trying to confuse them. They stayed behind me the entire time. I stopped, suddenly blocking the lane. The car behind me stopped too, leaving a careful gap. Neither of us moved. The air felt thick. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I put the car in reverse and backed up slowly. The other car backed up as well. My phone buzzed again. That won't work. I slammed my foot on the accelerator and sped toward the exit ramp, tires squealing slightly on the concrete. The other car surged forward, engine roaring now, headlights snapping on suddenly and flooding my rearview mirror with blinding white light. I screamed, my hands shaking as I gripped the wheel. The ramp felt steeper than before, tighter. My car struggled as I climbed. I could feel them gaining on me. Halfway up, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The exit gate was down. I slowed, instinctively, panic flooding my chest. The car behind me slowed too, staying close now, too close. I glanced in the mirror and saw the outline of the driver for the first time. Just a shape, head tilted slightly as if studying me. My phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up. You came down here knowing no one would help. I slammed on the brakes, swerved into an empty row at the last second, and cut my lights. The garage went dark. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then I heard a car door open behind me. The sound of the car door opening echoed through the garage like a gunshot. It didn't slam, it didn't creak. It closed softly, deliberately, as if whoever stepped out wanted me to hear it and nothing else. I stayed frozen, my headlights off, my engine idling so quietly I could barely tell it was still running. The darkness felt thick, heavy, pressing in from every direction. Footsteps followed. Slow, unhurried. Each step bounced off the concrete and returned to me slightly distorted, making it hard to tell exactly where they were. I lowered myself in the seat, barely breathing, my heart hammering so hard it made me dizzy. I didn't know if they could see me. I didn't know if they already had. My phone buzzed in my hand. You didn't think I'd stay in the car, did you? I bit down on my lip to keep from making a sound. I slid the phone face down onto the passenger seat and focused on the shadows ahead. I could make out the outline of a concrete column a few spaces away, the dark mouth of another ramp beyond it. If I could just get there, if I could move without being seen, I might have a chance. The footsteps stopped. Silence settled again, broken only by the faint hum of distant traffic above us. I waited, counting my breaths, my muscles aching from tension. Then a shape moved in the darkness to my left. A silhouette passed briefly through a dim patch of light, just enough for me to see a person walking between rows of cars. They weren't searching randomly. They were heading straight toward me. Panic surged. I slammed my car into drive and punched the accelerator, the engine roaring to life. The sudden noise shattered the quiet. I sped forward, swerving around a parked car and shooting toward the upward ramp. Behind me, I heard a shout more annoyed than surprised, and then the rapid thud of footsteps breaking into a run. I didn't look back. My tires screeched as I hit the ramp, the car struggling for traction. The exit gate at the top still glowed red. Closed. My stomach dropped. I slowed just enough to swipe my access card at the reader, praying it would work. The seconds stretched impossibly long. Behind me, headlights snapped on again, flooding the ramp with harsh light. The gate didn't move. My phone buzzed. It only opens for employees. I screamed, frustration and fear tearing out of me. I reversed hard, narrowly missing the concrete wall, and shot down the ramp again, heart pounding. The other car followed instantly faster, now aggressive. There was no more pretending, no more distance. I took a sharp turn into another level, my headlights catching rows of empty spaces. I drove straight through the middle of the floor, horn blaring, hoping the noise would draw attention. It felt pointless. No one was there. No one would hear me. I spotted a stairwell door ahead, painted bright yellow and glowing faintly under a single emergency light. I slammed on the brakes, jumped out of the car, and ran. My footsteps echoed wildly as I yanked the door open and threw myself inside. The stairwell smelled of dust and metal. I took the steps two at a time, lungs burning, my hands slipping on the cold railing. Somewhere below, a door banged open. Footsteps followed again, faster this time. I reached the ground level and burst through the exit into the cold night air. The street outside was empty, lined with closed shops and dark windows. I ran anyway toward the nearest intersection, my chest tight with panic. Headlights flared behind me as the other car exited the garage, engine roaring. I veered off the sidewalk and into the open doors of a convenience store just ahead, nearly colliding with a display as I stumbled inside. "Help!" I gasped, barely able to stand. "Someone's following me." The clerk looked up, eyes widening. He glanced out the window as I collapsed against the counter. Outside, the car slowed at the curb. For a moment it looked like it might pull in. Instead, it idled there, engine running, headlights aimed straight at the store. My phone buzzed one last time. "This is where you stop running." The clerk grabbed the phone under the counter and started dialing. "Police are on the way," he said firmly, his voice cutting through the fog in my head. Outside, the car's engine revved. The headlights flicked off. Then the car pulled away, disappearing down the empty street as if nothing had happened. The police arrived minutes later. They took my statement, checked the garage, reviewed what little footage existed. The cameras in the lower levels hadn't been working. The access logs showed no record of another car entering or exiting at the times I described. One officer asked gently if I'd been under a lot of stress lately. I knew what I'd seen. I didn't drive home that night. I stayed with a friend and avoided parking garages entirely for weeks. I changed my routes, my schedule. I tried to forget. A month later, while cleaning out my car, I found something wedged beneath the driver's seat. A printed photo. It showed my car parked in the garage on level B2. The timestamp was from minutes before I got off the elevator that night. On the back, written in careful handwriting, were 4 words. "You parked too deep." I threw the photo away. I told myself it was over. But every eve now, when I pull into a garage and feel the air go still, I remember how easily darkness can swallow sound, how quickly silence can turn into permission. And I never park below ground anymore. Not if I'm alone. I stopped at that gas station on Eve because I didn't have a choice. The low fuel light had come on miles ago, and I'd ignored it longer than I should have, convincing myself I could make it home before the tank ran dry. I was driving alone, rain tapping steadily against the windshield, the highway nearly empty in both directions. Eve nights always felt strange to me too, quiet, like the world was holding its breath. When the sign finally appeared through the rain, glowing weakly at the edge of the road, I felt a surge of relief. The gas station looked old, the kind that sat far enough from town that it only survived on people like me, drivers who waited too long to stop. The canopy lights were on, but only half of them. One flickered steadily, casting uneven shadows across the pumps. I pulled in and parked beside the far pump, instinctively choosing the one closest to the building. My car was the only one there. I shut the engine off and sat for a moment watching the rain slide down the glass. The convenience store inside looked lit, but I couldn't see anyone behind the counter. I told myself that was normal. Late hours. Holiday Eve. People called in sick. I stepped out, the smell of wet asphalt filling my nose, and started pumping gas. The sound felt too loud in the empty space, every click and hum echoing back at me. Halfway through filling the tank, I noticed another car turn off the highway and slow as it approached the station. It didn't pull in right away. It rolled past the entrance, slowed almost to a stop, then reversed and turned into the lot. My shoulders tensed. The car parked at the pump directly across from mine, leaving a wide gap between us. The engine stayed running. I kept my eyes on the pump, telling myself not to stare. Plenty of people stopped for gas at night. There was nothing suspicious about that. Still, I felt the weight of being watched, the kind you sense before you can explain it. The driver didn't get out. I finished pumping and hung the nozzle back in place, glancing toward the other car. The windshield was dark, impossible to see through. The rain reflected the canopy lights, hiding whoever sat inside. I walked toward the store, my keys clenched between my fingers without thinking. The bell above the door chimed when I stepped inside. The warmth hit me immediately. The place smelled like coffee that had been sitting too long. "Hello," I called. No answer. I looked around. The lights were on the shelves stocked, but the counter was empty. The register screen glowed faintly, unattended. A small sign taped to the counter read, "Back in a minute." I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. Nothing. My unease grew. I didn't like the idea of being alone inside while someone sat outside in their car. I glanced through the window. The car across the lot hadn't moved. The engine was still running. I grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and set it on the counter, debating whether to leave cash or just go. That's when I noticed the security monitor mounted above the register. The screen showed the outside pumps. On the feed, I saw myself standing at my car moments earlier pumping gas. Then the image shifted slightly, showing the other car pulling in. The camera zoomed in not smoothly, but deliberately centering on my face. I froze. The camera moved again, tracking me as I walked toward the store. Then the feed switched to a different angle inside the store. The camera caught me standing there, staring up at the screen. The image paused. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. No signal bars, but a text notification appeared from an unknown number. "You shouldn't stay inside." My breath caught. I looked back at the monitor. The outside feed now showed the other car's driver door opening. I didn't wait. I grabbed the water and ran back outside, rain soaking my hair instantly. The other car's door was open now, but no one stood beside it. I hurried to my car, unlocking it and climbing inside, locking the doors immediately. My phone buzzed again. That was rude. I started the engine, my heart pounding, and backed out of the space, ready to leave without even paying. As I pulled toward the exit, the other car finally moved. It pulled in front of me, blocking the way out. The engine idled. The rain streaked across both windshields, blurring everything. I couldn't see the driver's face. My hands shook on the wheel. My phone buzzed one more time. You're low on fuel. You'll come back. I realized then that stopping here hadn't been a coincidence, and leaving wasn't going to be easy. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel as rain drummed harder against the windshield, my headlights cutting weakly through the gray haze. The car blocking the exit didn't move. Its engine idled steadily, calm, patient, like it had nowhere else to be. I glanced toward the store, hoping to see the clerk return, or anyone at all, but the windows reflected only darkness and rain. My phone buzzed again in my hand. You didn't pay. My chest tightened. I put the car in reverse, slowly testing the space behind me. The other car didn't react. I backed up a little farther, then turned the wheel sharply and tried to swing around them using the empty pump lane. For a split second, it looked like it might work. Then the other car lurched forward, cutting me off smoothly, forcing me to slam on the brakes. My heart pounded so hard it made my vision blur. The driver's window lowered just an inch, not enough to see a face, just enough to hear a voice carried faintly through the rain. You don't listen very well, it said, not raised, not angry, just disappointed. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes, and hit the horn the sound, loud and desperate in the empty night. The driver didn't flinch. Instead, they pulled their car slightly to the side, clearing just enough space that I thought they were letting me go. Relief surged through me, reckless and overwhelming. I slammed my foot on the gas and surged forward. As soon as my front tires crossed the edge of the lot, the other car accelerated too, sliding back into place behind me. My stomach dropped. The highway swallowed us again, rain streaking sideways now, visibility shrinking with every mile. I pushed my speed higher than I should have, hands shaking, every muscle locked tight. The other car stayed with me effortlessly, headlights fixed in my mirrors like unblinking eyes. My phone buzzed again. See easier when you keep moving. I screamed, the sound torn out of me by fear, and wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, forcing myself to focus. Ahead through the rain, I spotted taillights, another vehicle far ahead, but real, proof I wasn't completely alone. I leaned into the accelerator, desperate to close the distance. The other car closed it too. The highway, curved trees pressing close, darkness, thickening between stretches of reflective paint. I saw a blue sign flash past rest area, 2 miles. Hope flared. Lights. People. Cameras. I veered toward the exit, barely signaling. The other car followed without hesitation. The rest area lights glowed dimly through the rain, almost sickly, but they were lights. I pulled in hard, skidding slightly on wet pavement, and parked crookedly near the building entrance. I jumped out rain, soaking me instantly, and ran for the door, my shoes slipping on the slick concrete. Inside the building was lit but empty, the hum of vending machines, the only sound. I spun around, breath ragged, watching through the glass as the other car rolled slowly into the lot. It didn't park near me. It stopped at the far edge, headlights on, illuminating the rain like a curtain. My phone buzzed again. You always run toward light. I sank onto a bench, shaking, clutching my phone like it could protect me. I tried calling 911 again. This time the call rang. A voice answered, calm and distant, and I broke down, words tumbling over each other as I tried to explain where I was and what was happening. While I spoke, I watched the car outside. The engine idled. Then, slowly, deliberately, the headlights turned off. The car sat there in darkness, barely visible now, like it was trying to disappear. Officers are on the way, the dispatcher said. Stay inside. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Minutes crawled by. The rain eased into a steady mist. My breathing slowed just enough that the shaking became noticeable. Outside, the car door opened. A figure stepped out, standing between me and the building, rain slicking their outline into a blur. They didn't approach. They didn't run. They just stood there watching the windows. My phone buzzed one last time. This is where you wait. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder. The figure outside tilted their head as if listening. Then they turned, walked back to the car, and drove away calmly, merging back onto the highway as if nothing had happened. The police arrived moments later, red and blue lights cutting through the night. They searched the area, took my statement, asked careful questions. There was no sign of the other car. No cameras at the pumps were working. The store clerk, when he finally returned, insisted he'd only stepped away for a few minutes and hadn't seen anything unusual. I drove home with an officer following me the entire way. I didn't sleep that night. Weeks later, when the fear had dulled into something quieter, I checked my phone records out of morbid curiosity. There were no messages saved, no unknown numbers, nothing to prove any of it had happened, except one thing. In my photo gallery, buried between ordinary pictures, was a single image I didn't remember taking. It showed my car at the gas pump, rain streaking across the frame. The timestamp was from before I went inside the store. In the reflection of my side mirror, barely visible, were headlights behind me on the highway, waiting. Ever since that night, I never let my fuel drop below half a tank. I don't stop at isolated stations. And every eve, when the road's empty and the rain starts to fall, I think about how close I came to not leaving that place at all, and how easily a quiet night can turn into something that follows you long after the road ends.